Welcome to all the students present over in the session. We are going to start the next session, that is lecture number 5. The topic is Principles of Organization. Principles of Organization has total 14 parameters, while we understand the principles of organization as such. Now, what is the importance of the 14 parameters are? When an organization is established, the organization, once it is established, the parameters of those 14, if it is been depthly understood before the implementation of the organization, then an effective organization would be developed as such. The meaning of principle of organization is about the structure formation. The structure is reporting of the top level to the low level management. The hierarchy, when it is said that to what extent it will be a better structure to have an understanding of that particular structure, we need to understand about all the 14 principles of the organization. The first and foremost principle of organization is align department objectives to corporate goals. Goals are defined in advance. Corporate level goals are defined in advance before the framing of the structure. Now that structure, whatever the corporate goals are been defined, does the department level objectives are matching to the corporate level goals or not is to be understood. Why? The top level, though they frame the goals, though they define the goals, to fulfill that particular goals, it is the low level and the middle level who actually fulfill that particular goals as such. So that is the reason the department level the objectives are supposed to match to the corporate level goals as such. And understanding that particular point in more depth level, suppose as the diagram is represented, the top level to the bottom level. Now at this level, the corporate objectives or corporate goals are being framed. That is, corporate goals are being framed as such. Now under this level, that means this is the area where the top management sit and they frame the goal. They frame only the goals. The fulfillment of the goals is actually been done through the middle level and the low level management, right? Through the low level management. These are the people who actually fulfill the goals which is already been defined at the corporate level. So meaning is that here, if the department, suppose assume that these are the departments which have been framed based upon the low level management and middle level management. These are the different levels of departments. Now each department, if they fulfill this particular objective, then the overall corporate goal is being fulfilled as such. So these areas are, that means the aligning of the department level objectives, right? Department level objectives should match towards the top level. It should match towards the top level in terms of fulfilling the goal as such. Now If this is been done, that is the first step in the principles of organization, right? The principles of organization, the first step, that every department, that means every department, the small areas where it is there, all those department objectives should actually match towards the at corporate level management or corporate level goals as such. So by that, what will happen? The actual goal of an organization would be fulfilled. The actual goal of the organization would be fulfilled. Now, if that is done effectively, then the second point is being involved as such. Now that is cost effective operation. The meaning of cost effective operation is trying to identify the most efficiency levels at each and every area which are being applicable in an organization. Now in organization, there would be n number of areas or n number of departments, right? As we have already done the department objectives in the first level. So that n number of department, each and every department, what is the cost involved and to what extent we are able to make that run effectively is been understood in the cost effective operation. So the cost effective operation is how much is that we are doing expenditure to that particular department and to what extent it is above or it is been possible to bring the profits with related to that. Now, in understanding the second point, we would understand the cost effective is, suppose if I take marketing department. Suppose if I take marketing department. Now this is one department. A cost is involved with it. A cost is involved with it, right? Now the cost which is involved, whether every department will generate a revenue. Every department would generate a revenue. What extent the cost is involved? Suppose if it is a cost of 100 rupees which I have been expenditured in marketing department. Now, what extent the revenue has been brought out? Revenue has been brought out. Now, if it is more than 1, right? If it is more than 1, more than 100, that means if it is more than 100, definitely there is an increase in revenue. That means a cost is at a comparatively lesser than revenue, so there is a profit. So when cost is less than the revenue, right, definitely there is a profit. But no organization, that means a cost, if it is less than revenue, then actually it is a better sign. Cost is less than revenue, it is a better sign, that is there is a profit. But if the profit alone is a consideration of a principle of organization, no, not at all. Just the profit alone is a consideration of the principle of organization, no, not at all. It is the first priority. It is the first priority, right? But the actual priority, that means the next level of priority is increasing the profit level, increasing the profits margin, more higher level as such. So what does that mean? Though at the second point, we would try to see that the cost is less than the revenue, right? The cost is less than the revenue. That means revenue is being higher, means definitely there is a profit. Now, the profit alone is not a consideration by any of the organization, because to establish an organization or to run an organization for a long term, actually the companies will concentrate for margin at more level, because If the margins are more to be concentrated, or if the level of margin is to be concentrated more, then actually the cost effective is to be given into the consideration wherever possible, and whatever areas or the departments are possible. If we try to reduce the particular cost which are unnecessary cost, and if we are able to provide a more higher level of revenue, then definitely there is an cost effective operations involved in the principle of organization. Now, by framing the structure, we know that this is the first level, CEO level, and the departments, and again the internal departments, right? Like that, if we have this particular department, the structure which is been formed, now this formation of a structure is also to be included, or it is also to be considered with related to cost effectiveness, right? So all these parameters will enable us to have a cost effective operations in the formation of the structure. So we have completed the second point. Now coming to the third point, it is optimum number of subordinates, right? Optimum number of subordinates. Why an optimum? The meaning of optimum is the level at which the organization effectiveness can be more, as we have done here. The second point which is connected to that, the effectiveness of the organization will be more when we have identified the optimum, right, which has been said to be optimum as such, optimum number of subordinates. And the reason behind why to find out the optimum number of subordinates is because when we find the number of subordinates, that is, the subordinates are the individual who report to the superior, right? This is superior, and the superior will be having an subordinates, right? Subordinates. So under this subordinates, so if I say that, right, if I say that there are number of subordinates, if a superior will be 1, whereas subordinate will be more than 1, right, or 1 or more than 1. So more than 1. In such case, if the subordinates, to what extent the superior can control is what is the optimum number of subordinates. Now, if the subordinate superior is having, if the superior is 1 and is having a number of subordinates, if these subordinates are more in number, say for example more than 10 numbers, right? If it is more than 10, then if it is more than 10, the possibility of superior controlling the subordinates will become difficult. And it also depends upon the superior caliber or capability. Now, how this control on the subordinates comes to the superior? The control of the superior on the subordinates comes through experience, right? Comes through experience. Now, say for example, if you take the Google organization, and under the Google organization, you can assume that there are some thousands of employees, and the superior or the CEO will be 1 only, right? The superior will be only 1, that is the topmost person. Now this Sundaram Pichai, though there are 1,000 numbers under the company he is working, but he has a direct control only to the level of this, that is, the people who may be the business heads. So business heads may be the direct subordinate to the CEO. The direct subordinate to the CEO may be the business heads. Okay. Now suppose there are 10 business, right? 10 businesses. Now, only this 10 businesses will be reporting directly to the CEO, who is known to us as a Sundaram Pichai. Now, then, if this business heads are becoming more in number, say for example, it has become 100 numbers, that is, and 100 numbers reporting to CEO will become a difficult task. Why? To have a review with the business heads, it may take, right? In a whole year, he can have an access to one business head only at 3 times, not more than that. So, accessing a business head only at 3 times, because I am just considering as 100 numbers. So, what is that? 100 numbers over a year of 365 days, the CEO can have a review of a business most probably once 3 to 4 times in a whole year, which is very, very, very less time in terms of having an access to the business control. So that is why there should be an optimum number of subordinates. If the subordinates are optimum, the control will be more effective. The control will be more effective. If the subordinates, as said, there is a chances of having a control of the superior also varies based upon the experience. Now, someone who has become a new CEO, right, or new CEO, definitely, or new manager, right, take it into consideration as a new manager, someone who is a new manager. New manager will definitely have less control on the subordinates. He may not have that efficient as such. Why? Because the manager is new and he may not have the control on the subordinates. But as this new manager becomes old, that means he has more experience and he has the skill set of having the control on the subordinates, and based upon that control on the subordinates, the people of number of subordinates can be increased to more subordinates based upon the experience. Now, this is what we understand the optimum number of subordinates. And also, if the optimum number of subordinates are identified, then their particular level of control from the superior to the upper level of the superiors will be more flexible as such, will be more flexible in terms of passing of communication, right? Now, as said that if this is superior, right? Now, superior passing on to the subordinates the information will be comparatively very good. Information passage, right? Information passage will be very good when there is an optimum number of subordinates. So, if this number of subordinates are increasing more in number, if the number of subordinates are increasing more in number, right, then what will happen? This information will have a discrete information. Now, what do we mean by discrete? The flow of information from top to bottom may have some obstacles. The flow of information from top to bottom may have some obstacles. That means whatever the superiors willing to inform may not reach to the subordinates as what is been expected at the superior level. That is the defect if the optimum number of the subordinates are misleading. Okay. Now, we have done with the third point. We will come to the fourth point, that is specialization. Now, while we are trying to frame the structure that of the organization, before the formation of the structure, we need to understand the different specializations which are involved in the organization. Why? Based upon the specialization, we actually try to make the departments or frame the departments as such. Now, when the departments are being split or when the departments are being supposed to be grouped, then according to that particular grouping of employees or splitting of the employees, now that process has to be done more relevant or related kind of works within the employees work task as such. Now that is what is called as the specialization. Now under the process of the specialization, we do understand that the area and the departments are being identified, and in that particular departments we try to recruit the number of employees in the specialization or the department as such. Now understanding about the specialization, we understand that suppose if there is an departments like the marketing department and finance department and HR department and production department. Now, if we try to understand this 3 or 4 departments, now employee with a specialization of accounting, right, a specialization or a qualification with accounting process cannot be appointed in the area of production. He would be recruited under the department which is called as finance, right? By splitting this, what would we would be able to understand? We would able to understand for each and every specialization, that is specialization 1, 2, 3, 4. These are 4 specialization which are taken into the consideration. Now splitting into this different departments or specialization, and number of employees, how many are required, also can be identified. Say for example, and marketing, how much number are required in terms of employees. Definitely in finance there will be very few in numbers required as such. Why? Because it is a simple or very small department where they will be doing the process of accounting and the financial activities. In case of HR, it is also few employees required because they do only the HR activities with related to the organization. Whereas if you take in case of the production, more employees are required. So to have an understanding on each and every department that how many employees are required as per the specialization is also been understood based upon this particular area or particular point which is called as specialization. By doing that particular process of specialization of in the organization, we would have a better understanding on number of employees required in each and every specialization. That is the taken into the consideration of this example for specializations. Okay, so to make the understanding, specialization will give us the classification of different departments, which will make us to understand how many employees are required for each and every specialization, which will also make us to understand what are the subordination level or subordinates required as such. So all this will provide a good information, and at last it will have an implication in framing of the organization structure. Now coming to the 5th point, that is define authority. Now authority means what? It is the power which is been given to the individual to control on the subordinate, right? So that is what is called as defining power. So defining authority. So again I'm putting it up. Define authority means the power which is been given to the individual whom we call as a superior. They have the power, or they should be provided with some power which is called as authority to have a control upon the subordinates. To have a control upon the subordinates as such. Now, if I don't give the authority, if I do not define the authority at each and every levels, then there is a difficulty in terms of controlling the subordinate. Now, the fifth point as the defining the authority and also the flow of authority, right? Now, fifth point as said, the defining the authority. Now, if I take the superior, superior has to get the work done from the subordinate, right? Subordinate. Now, when the superior is supposed to get the work done from the subordinate, he has to have the control on the subordinate. Without the control, he cannot get the work done from the subordinate. Now, that level is what is called as the authority. To what extent you have the authority on the subordinate. To what extent the superior has the authority on the subordinate. Now, if the superior doesn't have the authority, right, if the superior doesn't have the authority, he may not complete the task which is being given to superior, because the task is given to whom? The task is given to superior, right? The task is given to superior. On what process? That this particular task has to be completed is being set to the superior. Now, how come the superior will complete that particular task? The superior will allocate the task to the subordinates. The superior will allocate the task to the subordinates. And if the task is supposed to be fulfilled, through whom he would be fulfilling? Through the subordinates only he would be fulfilling. So, when he is supposed to fulfill the task through the subordinate, the superior has to have the authority on the subordinate to get the task completed. Now, what extent of the authority is there, we are supposed to define it. Say for example, if I say this as a subordinate, now subordinate will have a control on from the superior. Now, superior will have again his boss who is been reporting as such, right? Again, higher level superior, right? And again he would be having an highest level superior as such. Highest level superior as such. Now, what does that mean is, he has an authority on him, right? He has an authority on him, and that is defined. It has to be defined to what extent. And similarly, he has an authority on him, that is again defined to what extent, and again he has an authority on him. So, why this is supposed to be defined? Because the task given to him is being, right, fulfilled through this people. The task given to him, task is given to him, right, and that is been fulfilled by this people. Again, the task given to this people is been fulfilled by, right, the task nominated to this people is been fulfilled by this people, and similarly the task given to this people is been fulfilled by this last level of the subordinates. That is why the authority has to be defined, then only you can get the task completed from the subordinates. If the authority has the lag process, if the authority has the deviation, then you would not be able to get the work done from the subordinates as such. Now, coming to the next point, flow of authority, right? Now, flow of authority is what? Generally, the flow of authority will be from the top level to bottom level. Generally, the flow of authority will be from the top level to bottom level. Now, when the flow of authority from the top level to bottom level it is defined, right? How the authority will be? the authority will be decreased as we go down the level. As we go down the level. Why? Because the top level will be having an subordinates, and they are being delegated with some subordinate that gets the work done. And similarly, as we go down the level, the authority will be comparatively more, at the last level it will be the most responsible in terms of completing the task, because they are the low line managers, but in understanding, the flow will be from top to bottom of the authority, and the responsibility will also be on the same level from top to bottom. But if you see the accountability, it will be in the reverse side from bottom to top level as such. Now this is what is been understood as flow of authority. So the sixth point is been completed. Now we'll move on to the seventh point. Now seventh point, manage the exceptional cases. Now what do we mean by manage the exceptional cases is, as an structure which has been formed in the organization, we do appoint or we do nominate the superiors. Superiors utilization of the work, or the superiors work should be utilized only when there is a need from them. It is not a continuous monitoring of the superiors should be there in an organization. That means when there is an exceptional problems or exceptional cases, then only the need of the manager or the superior is required, right? The understanding here is, though we have a superior should not be given a task of monitoring the subordinates every then and there. The utility of the superior work or utility of the superior responsibilities towards the organization has to be only when there is a need of an exceptional situations. Example, if I take into the consideration of the exceptional cases, meaning exceptional cases is manager is being allocated with some responsibility. Now the subordinates are being given a regular task to be completed. Subordinates are given with a regular task. They are given with a regular task, right? Now what is the productivity of the manager if he looks only the regular task? I hope you would have understood. So if the manager is been appointed because he is a more higher pay level and he is been provided with more set of skills, what is the utility of this manager, or what is the use of this manager if he just regularly checks only the task which is been done by the subordinate? No, there is no utility at all, or the manager is not effectively being utilized by the organization. So what is the role of the manager there? Role of the manager is that he has to look into the subordinate only when there is an unavoidable situations. Means unavoidable situations means a problem which is not been solvable, and problem which is not been solvable by the subordinates. That means a need of a manager is exceptionally there. Without the presence of manager, the subordinate cannot complete the solution or provide the solution to the problem. In only such kind of situations, the manager has to provide, or his work or his utility process of utilization has to be done at only the unavoidable situations, or at some problems, right? At some problems. So that what will happen in this case, ultimately the exceptional cases is nothing but the problems at that point of time only the manager has to be used as such, instead of using the resources of manager in the regular situations or regular monitoring of the subordinate task. Now coming to the next point, that is ensure one employee and one superior. Now ensure one employee and one superior, meaning is superior should be only one, subordinates can be any number, or and that number is what? And number to what extent a superior can have a control on the subordinate. Okay. Now superior should be only one, because more than one superior the flow of information will be different and it will be difficult in terms of understanding and following the instruction. Now if I try to explain this superior one employee with one superior, meaning is that if I have here an marketing manager boss and here the HRM boss. Okay. Now a worker is there who has to have the work completed from the task given by the marketing manager and also from the human resource manager. Now there is an conflict. Now what is that happening? There are two bosses here. Here it has become two superior, right? Here it has become two superior. So according to the worker will become a confused state of situation to follow either the marketing manager given task in first or to the HR manager given task, right? If I take the third one, that is finance manager. Now there is again a constraint or conflict over here. What is that? It would happen if the worker is supposed to report to finance manager, marketing manager and human resource manager. The objective of finance manager is reduce the cost. The objective of the finance manager is reduce the cost, whereas the objective of marketing manager is increase the cost in terms of advertisement or in terms of sales activities as such. So what is that? There is a conflict between increase in cost, there is a conflict between reduce the cost. Now worker can follow only either this or either this. So what is that happening here? Because of having two superior or more than one superior, the worker will ultimately get into a conflict with related to work which is supposed to complete. So that is the reason we actually have a only one superior and number of subordinates. That means subordinates can be n number, but that subordinates should have only one superior, which will provide a better understanding of the organization structure. And even in this number of subordinates, we need to identify the optimum number. So optimum number will give you the actual good relationship between the superior and the subordinate, right? So I hope you would have understood ensure one employee and one superior. So next to that particular point, we would go to the ninth point, that is one head and one plan. Now the meaning of heads is head are nominated to one particular functional area or one particular specialization or one particular department. All these three have the same relevancy as such. So what does that mean? Either in the form of a specialization or either in the form of an department or either relevant to function. So when we do or identify different departments or different specialization, each and every department or each and every function will have or should have only one head. If a department or a specialization or a function is having more than one head, then it will have a difficulty in terms of implementing that particular plan at the bottom level. Now example of this understanding is that suppose if I have the CEO of a company, right? CEO should have a number of heads. Now he would be having the number of heads under the responsibility of CEO. Now what is this? He may be head for which particular department? Maybe for finance, right? And he is the head for production, and he is the head for system, and he is the head for marketing, and one more will take head for HR. So what is that here? The heads are, all right, what we call as a respective departments. The heads are called as a respective departments. Now if we have more than one head, if we are having two heads at this level, what will happen? One head will be having one plan and the other head will be having other plan. That means workers under them, right, workers under them may not be able to follow the two heads under the same specialization or same department or same function as such. That is the reason every time the head should be only one in number, and they would be able to follow the plan which is been only one plan in the particular head. Suppose here what is that happening? It is become plan 1 and this has become plan 2. Now both the plans, right, both the plans are under the same department or same specialization, which is what? Finance department. So they may not be able to, the workers may not be able to follow the process of the plan in the progress which is been given as such. Now the worker, in case of only with one plan, will be able to follow the specialization more effectively as such. Similarly, in the other case also, if there is only one plan, then with only one head, then they would be able to follow the particular plan very effectively as such. Okay, I hope you would have understood. So coming to the next point, it is define responsibility as such. Now what do we mean by responsibility? The responsibility is the one which comes from the individual of the subordinates, right? It is what we call as an individual of the subordinates as such. Now the responsibility and authority are interlinked. The responsibility and the authority are interlinked. Now this three, including the accountability, this three will give an understanding on how the structure of the organization has to be framed, right? Now I would explain in the diagrammatic representation of what is the understanding between the authority and responsibility, and the third, which is accountability. Now suppose if I say that this is superior, right, these are all superior, and here it is subordinate, here it is subordinate. Now superior will have an authority on the subordinate. Similarly, superior will have a responsibility also. So that is the reason why he is actually making the subordinate to work done. Subordinate in turn have the accountability. Subordinate will have in turn accountability in terms of task getting completed, right, in terms of task getting completed. So here if you see that the superior having the responsibility, then he would be able to authoritate on the subordinate, right, then he would be able to authoritate on the subordinate as such. Now we can understand more in depth that superior having high level of authority, right, superior having high level of authority under the if the superior is having a high level of authority, superior having high level of authority. Now, if high authority and in that case and less responsibility, right? High authority and less responsibility, then what will happen? The subordinates may not be, right, may not be able to check with their work. May not be able to check with their work. What do we mean by this is, authority is given high to the superior, whereas the subordinate, the task given is very less. The task given is less. That means the responsibility is less. So, the employees may not be controlled or may not be checked with their what work they are doing, because work is less and the authority is very, very high. Right? Now, that is not a good sign. Similarly, if the other way, that is, the authority is less, authority instead of high authority, it is less authority, right? It is less authority and the work is, right, that is high responsibility. That means high task, so this is superior, and the authority is less authority and the responsibility is high responsibility. Then work cannot be achieved. Then work cannot be achieved as such. Why? Because cannot be achieved. Because the authority is given less to the superior, whereas the responsibility given is very high. He cannot make the workers to get the work done from the subordinates. That is why the authority and the responsibility should have an matching, or it should have an relevancy between one to the other as such. Okay. Now, I hope you would have understood the responsibility also. So, coming to the next point, right, commensurate authority and responsibility. That is what we have understood now. That is, authority and responsibility should be of the almost controllable level. To that extent, the work or responsibility should be given. More the authority, less the responsibility, the employees would not be monitored, or we cannot monitor the productivity of the employees. Now, if the authority is less and the responsibility is very high, we would not be able to make the work complete as such. Why? Because the subordinates are given with high responsibility or work in terms of getting completed, and the authority is less from the superior to the subordinate. So, the work would not be able to be completed or get the task completed, because the authority on the subordinate is comparatively less. And similarly, we have the next point, that is attain balance. Attain balance is having an almost getting equivalent of authority and responsibility. That is what is called as a balancing of the authority and responsibility. So, once we are able to have a balance between authority and responsibility, then the whole structure of the organization has been defined a very, very good organization structure as such. Now, under the process of the balancing, right, under the process of balancing, it should be an matching between the authority and the responsibility. Mismatch will have an impact on both these sides, right? As I explained initially itself with related to the diagrammatic process, the diagrammatic process, as again I am explaining it, the superior and subordinate, right? Now, what is that? They have an authority. Now, if it is high authority and, right, if it is high authority and low responsibility, one case. Second case, it is low authority and high responsibility. Both will have a mismatch. Both will have a mismatch. So, high authority, low responsibility, worker, the subordinate will work cannot be cannot be monitored. Why? Because there is no task at all, right? Why? Because there is no task at all or there is no work at all to have a monitoring, but they have an authority. So it is an one category of mismatch. The other category, low authority, high responsibility. Here, work cannot be completed. Right? Why here the work cannot be completed? Because the superior has a low authority and the responsibility is very, very high. So, responsibility of the subordinate is high, but the superior doesn't have a control or the power to control on the subordinate. So, definitely the work cannot be achieved or completed on the given time duration. So, both are and different levels of balancing. It is other word we can say that this is not balancing kind of an, right? This is not a balancing kind when we go by this method or this method. So that is why we should have a balancing of authority towards the responsibility. The authority and responsibility, when it has been given balanced or if it has been attained balance in the particular organization structure, that will frame a better organization structure as such. Okay. Now coming to the next point, it is ensure flexibility. Flexibility, we mean that the flexibility should be there in the organization structure. Reason behind the flexibility to be in the organization structure is because no technology or no services remains to be constant. So when there is a change in the structure or when there is a change in the technology and the services, the organization structure also has to have the flexibility in terms of adapting to the new structure as such. Now, if the structure is rigid, that is you cannot change the structure, then what will happen? In case of rigidness of the structure, you will be made and or else you would be made to backdrop the particular losses because of the rigidness of the structure. And the reason behind that particular structure being very flexible will make actually to ensure the particular levels of flexibility as such. Now coming to this particular flexibility, the structure, if it is flexible, then the ability of organizing that particular structure more smoothly, adapting to the changes then and there will be very much possible as such. The flexibility makes an organization structure more compatible to the new advancement of the technologies in the world scenario as such. Now coming to the last point of the principles of organization, it is provide for continuity. Now what does that it is providing for continuity? The structure is actually enables the organization to provide for continuity. Meaning is that absence or the elimination of any one of the departments should not have a blockage of the other department, right? Or absence of any one of the manager or any one of the superior in the organization should not stop the running of the business. Okay. Now I would explain in the form of a diagram. The continuity means when if I have a particular person over here and when I have a subordinates in the similar level, that is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now again if I have the subordinates 8, 9, 10, 11. Now the Continuity of the structure of organization is, suppose if this particular manager, right, manager is being removed or terminated or transferred or promoted, whatever it may be, okay, whatever it may be. So at the understanding is that the manager who is at the number 11 is been not there. The removal of this should not stop the business anyway. The removal of this particular manager should not stop the business at any point. That is what is called as the continuity as such. Because the organization is built for itself, it should not have a discontinuity because of an individual or because of an individual position. Any position should not halt the particular organization. The individual should not have a more control on the organization structure. Elimination of any individual should not have a discontinuity in the organization structure. That is what is the understanding of the provide of continuity, or making that sense that any individual should not, removal of any individual should not stop the continuity of the business, right? Now this is what is the 14 principles of organization structure. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. Sir, sir, right. So in continuation to the last topic, that is principles of organization, we are going to the next, that is the types of organization structure. Okay, there are 5 types of organization structure which are common in terms of the organization structure. There are modern organization structure also, which we have already discussed in the previous lecture. Now the classification of this organizations is based on 2, right? It has been done, or it is been classified based upon 2 factors. One, it is actually the authority level, and the other one is the department. Other one is the department. So now this classification is being done by the authority, right? So based on the classification, these types are being denoted. Now what are the types which are being denoted based upon the authority or classification of authority? It is line organization, it is line and staff organization, second one. Third, it is functional organization. Fourth, committee organization. And fifth, matrix organization. This, all the 5 types of organization are being classified based upon the authority. Whereas the department classification is being done after the years of 2000 or 1990 onwards. The most common type of the organization structure was being done based upon the authority, right? Now how the authority will have a flow? The authority will have a flow from the top to bottom levels. Now how it is flowing? The way or method of the flow of the authority, based upon that the direction or the types of the organization is being denoted as such. This 5 types of the organization structure are the most common types of organization structure which are being used, right, in 90% of the organizations as such, right? Now coming to the first type of organization structure, that is line organization structure. Line organization structure is one of the most oldest type of organization. Among all the types of organization structure, line organization is the oldest method of the organization structure, right? the line organization structure, they have found out that the only the authority flow from the top to bottom is not sufficient. We also need the support from those who are specialized as such. Now that involved the next level of organization structure, which is called as the line and staff organization structure. Right? That is called as the line and staff organization structure. The line and staff organization structure was a connected, or it is in both put together line and staff type of an organization structure, but that was also not confined to one particular department or one particular specialization. That evolved the next level of the organization, which is called as the functional organization. Now, functional organization is more confined to one particular specialization, or it is confined to one particular department, or it is confined to one particular head. That is what is the functional level of management or functional type of organization structure as such. Now, though it is a functional, in all the different types of organization, there had been a sudden requirement of a formation of an employee in the form of a committee, and this committee organization will only be for a particular duration and they will get dissolved as such. And committee would have been framed or formed by the most experienced or most experts in that particular relevant field as such. That is what is called as committee organization. Under the committee organization, the experts are being nominated by the organization from the different departments or from the different specialization. They form to a group form and they give the inputs with related to the problem what they are supposed to be given as such. That is the method, or that is the reason why the committee organization have been framed. And the last one, it is the matrix organization. Most of the organization found out that they are very much suitable to only one category of a project, and they were very much suitable to only one category of a specialization, and they were suitable to only one direction of the authority. But the companies wanted a parallel projects to be worked out, and the employees reporting to the parallel project heads, and with also the specialized or discipline or heads as such. Now, to form such type of organization, that had evolved the next level of organization structure, which is called as a matrix organization structure, right? So as said, these are all the 5 types of organization which had been classified based on the authority, as such. Okay, so we'll go into the classification, the principles of organization. That is the diagram which has been represented. Types of organization, they are 5, right? Again, to have a recollection of the types of organization, that is line organization, and the line organization, next to that it is the line and staff organization, and next to line and staff organization, functional organization, next to functional it is matrix and committee organization. All the 5, right? All the 5 are the actual representation of the organization based or framed based upon the authority as such. Okay, these are the 5 types of organization which are very much involved with almost all the organization in the world as such, right? These are the 5 types of organization structure. Now, coming to the first type of organization structure, the diagrammatic representation, line organization structure. Now, if you see this line organization structure, as said, the first point, please remember, it is the oldest type of organization structure. It is the oldest type of organization structure. Now, the head will have the subordinates, and the subordinates will have again the next level of subordinates. Now, what is the line here? CEO will have a control on a production manager and the marketing manager, and production manager will have an assistant manager and engineer, and assistant manager and engineer B as such. Similarly, marketing manager will have a sales officer A and B, and each individual will have a salesperson who are responsible to only those people as such. Okay. Now, if I explain in the form of a diagrammatic representation of authority, how it comes to is, suppose this person is the CEO, right? There are 4 channels, that means this person is been connected to this, and that is one line, and the second person is been connected to this, and he is again reporting to the C. That means the production manager will get the work done from the 2 person, that is the assistant manager A and assistant manager B, and in turn they will report to the CEO. Similarly, in case of a marketing manager, this person will report to the CEO, that is marketing manager will be reporting, and the sales officer B will be reporting to the marketing manager. Now, the formation of this is what is called as a line relationship or line organization as such. Meaning is that there will not be any internal other person who would be involved in the organization structure. So ultimately, the CEO would be reported by his subordinates only, and this production manager will be reported by the subordinates only, and marketing manager will be reported by the subordinates only. That means at this level, at one connectivity is there, and here again one connectivity is there. That means the engineer will report to assistant manager, and in turn this person will be reporting to him. And similarly here engineer will report to this person, and here he will be reporting to the production manager. And similarly at sales officer A, person will be reporting to him, and similarly in sales officer B, salesperson will be reporting to him, and he will be reporting to this particular person as well. So what is that? Here there is a connectivity, and again there is an connectivity at, there is no intersection between the superior and the subordinate. Please understand, there is no interconnection between the superior and subordinate. That means the CEO doesn't have an access directly to the assistant manager, and similarly production manager doesn't have an access to engineer as such. Now this kind of a representation is what is called as an line organization. So again I put few points about the line organization. Line organization is the first and foremost organization, which is called as the oldest organization structure, and it is also called as a military organization. Why? Because we have in a military how the superior will have a number of subordinates, and the subordinates will again have a number of subordinates as such. Now that formation of the process is what is called as a line organization. It is also called as a military organization as such. Now we'll see the merits and demerits of this particular line organization as such. Okay. Now the merits and demerits of the line organization are, right? The first merit, it is direct lines of authority and responsibility. Direct lines of authority and responsibility as such. Means we have seen in the diagrammatic representation, right? The direct line is there in terms of the organization. What we understand here, it is the direct line represents that we have seen the subordinates, and again like this we have seen there is no interconnection between the diagram which we have seen, right? So this was the line which is being given. There is no intermediate connectivity as such. That is what is called as direct lines of authority and responsible, because every point is a responsible. Every point is a responsibility of the work given to them, of a work given to them. This is what is called as a direct line and responsibility. Okay. Now coming to the second point, it is simple to understand. Why it is simple to understand? Because there is no intermediary connectivity of the other workers or other superior as such. The flow is straight, and the responsibility is also been defined correctly, and based upon that the it is very simple to understand as such. That is what is the second merit of the line organization. Now coming to the third, it is each section as a unit for a control purpose. Now if we have seen the previous diagram, the production manager having as one unit, and he is again classifying it into two, that is the manager 1A and manager B as a second person. He is taking manager A as one unit and manager B as a second unit. Similarly, sales officer in the marketing manager, we have seen that again as a sales manager A and sales manager B as such. Now that will have as a more control upon that particular individual unit. Suppose if one unit is lagging in the area, we can make the work done from the other or second area as such. Now coming to the third merit, fourth merit, it is flexible. Why it is flexible? Because it can have the change of that particular structure very easily in case of line organization. If it is a complex line, a complex type of an organization, it becomes a rigid in terms, or it becomes a difficult in terms of a changeover. Now it is a flexible because it is very simple and it is direct in the form of a line organization, and that is the reason it is very flexible as such, right? And fifth point, facilities quick decision and promote prompt action as such. Reason is that as we have a clear understanding or a flow of a diagram, that is the lines are very much clearly understandable. The decision taken is also very simple and it is been able to be implemented very quickly as such, right? And that is the fifth merit as such. Now coming to demerits, line manager is overburdened with all tasks. Why? Because the manager is the one who is supposed to take all the kind of work. Since he is supposed to concentrate all the work, it becomes difficult for the individual, right? He is supposed to take the responsibility of the subordinate, whatever the task it has been applied as such. That is why it becomes an overburden to the manager. Now second one, no scope for specialization. There is no scope for specialization. Why it is no scope for specialization? Because the organization structure is not framed according to the specialization or according to the department or functions as such. That is why there is no scope for specialization, because every individual is supposed to work in all the area, and based upon that the work will be done as such, and that is the reason there is not possible of making the specialization as such. Clear? Now the third one, more scope for favoritism and nepotism. Why? Because the manager is only one, right, to whom the subordinates will be reporting. So the subordinates will do the work and also try to get the favoritism by the superior only, because that superior is the one who has a complete control or authority on the subordinate as such. Because of the complete control or authority on the subordinate try to get the favoritism from the superior as such. That is a negative or a demerit as such. Next to that, low moral in the organization. Why no low moral in the organization? As said, the individual or the subordinate will be reporting to the superior for a complete duration in the organization. Because of that, some deviation in terms of work or some dissatisfaction between the superior and the subordinate will lead to low moral. When there is a movement of employee from one department to other department, or from one functional area to other functional area, then there could be a higher level of a moral as such. Because if the employee is knowing that he has to work under only one superior for the lifelong in the organization, the employee more often making a productivity, he will try to get the favoritism by behaving according to that. That will try to lead towards the low moral of the employee. And finally, the fifth point, it is instability is likely due to lack of continuity. Instability is due to lack of continuity, because if one person gets eliminated or been removed from that particular level, that work is been burdened upon the remaining employees for a certain duration. No other employee is been transferred from the other department to work at that particular level as such. That is the reason why it becomes an instability in terms of the continuity as such. As again I am putting it the last demerit, when an employee is been moving away from one particular area, the other area the employees will not be transferred to that particular, and that is the reason whatever the number of employees have been moved out of one particular department, remaining employees of the same department need to work more higher level to complete the task. That is what is called as instability as such. Okay, and also it becomes a boredom when you repeat the same kind of work for regularly. Now this is the demerits, right? So we have done with the merits and demerits of line organization. So we'll go to the next one, that is line and staff organization. So under the line and staff organization, right? Now what is the difference you would have seen between the line and staff organization? Line is an direct interconnected responsibilities or authority as such, whereas in line and staff you can see here the staff are this people who are called as financial advisor, who are called as assistant to managing director, who are called as human resource manager, who are called as legal advisors. Now what is that they are doing? This alone is what is said to be as an line management. This alone, which one? Manager division A, manager division B, manager division C, reporting to managing director and board of director. This particular unit of direction is called as line, and this people who are in the connected form of a dotted is what is called as the staff member as such. Now I'll explain it more in the form of a diagrammatic representation, so you can understand that this people are said to be as a line, right? This people are said to be as a line as such. Now why? Because they are the one who do the task. They are the one who are doing the task. Whereas what is the other representation? The other representation is the one who are making the staff level. These people are said to be as a staff levels as such. Why? They are not connected to complete the task. Without their presence, the work will be completed. Without their presence, the work will be completed. But actually, what is that going to happen is, these people support the managing director for the need of the people in terms of the financial requirement. So what is this people are doing? These people are supporting these people, whoever the employees are there, that is board of director, managing director, manager division A, B and C. All these people, even this people's also. Even this people's requirement also with related to which one? Only with related to the financial aspect, these people do the activities. Now similarly, in case of the other areas, right, that is the human resource management. Now what do? Human resource management, they actually connect with related to again this all people, right? What do? How much employees are required? Whatever they are required, they do the process in terms of the human resource manager, right? So these areas are said to be as, right, these are called as staff, right? These are called as the staff employees, and the other line employees are, these employees are said to be as a line employees as such, right? Now these employees are said to be as a line employees. So what is that? It is a combination of a line, and these people are said to be as a staff. Staff are specialized in respective areas. Staff are specialized, right? Specialized in respective areas. These are people whom we call as a specialized, right, in the respective areas as such. Clear? So a combination of specialized employees and the regular employees who contribute to the work are called as line and staff organization. Are called as line and staff organization. So line employees, they complete the work given to them, and staff employees, they support the line employees to make the organization structure more better and more effective as such, right? I hope you would have understand. Now we'll go to the merits and demerits of line and staff organization. Now under the merits of line and staff organization, the first merit is it enhances the quality of decision. Why it enhances the quality of decision? Because the involvement of the specialized people are there, and to the need of the line, the specialized people put together may take the decision more better as such. That is why it enhances the quality of decision whichever is been taken. Now next to the decision, we have the second merit, that is there is a greater scope of advancement. Why there is a greater scope of advancement? Again, the reason is the staff are specialized. They give the suggestion to the line members to implement certain changes which are adaptable according to the new advancement as such. That is the reason it leads to the advancement of the organization structure. Now coming to the third merit, it relieves the line managers. Why? Before the previous in the organization, that is line organization, we have seen that line managers were the responsible for all the activities connected to all of their subordinate requirement. But here the line managers also does not or may not have a clarity on other specialized activities. Due to the recruitment of the specialized employees, we are able to make the line managers relieved with some aspects of work. That is why the line managers are able to concentrate more in depth in their work what is to be done. Now, the fourth merit, it is mostly beneficial. Why it is mostly beneficial? Because the employees who are a combination of line and staff will provide a better solution to any kind of a problem which is there in an organization. That is why it is most beneficial, right? Now coming to the demerits, it may create more friction or conflict. Why? The conflict is because a specialized employee is there and a line manager is there. Always the specialized, that is the staff, they give the suggestions only, but the suggestions sometimes may conflict with the line managers, because line manager may be wanting to have the different kind of an implementation of a solution, but the staff may be suggesting some other different kind of a suggestion which may be a conflict, because specialized person are well known with relevant to their specialized activity, but still the manager will be the person who will be the responsible for implementing the decision. So that is why there is a chances of conflict between the staff and the line managers as such. Now the second demerit is staff suggestion are seldom implemented. That is, staff will only suggest, they will never have the authority of implementing. Now who has the authority of implementing? The line managers has the authority of implementing the decision. So again I'm putting it up, the line managers has the authority of implementing. Since the line manager has the authority of implementing, the staff will not be able to have the control on the other levels of subordinate. He can have only the responsibility of suggesting, and always whatever he has suggested may not be implemented, though knowing that the staff has to suggest. Sometimes it doesn't happen. That is why it is a demerit. Now coming to the last demerit of this particular line and staff organization is, it is expensive to have both staff and line, because the staff are all being paid with higher level of salaries because they are specialized in that particular areas as such. They are specialized in those areas, they need to be paid with a higher level of salary, and similarly they are also supposed to pay the line managers in comparison to only the line organization. Now this is the 3 demerits of the line and staff organization. So we are done with line and staff organization. We will go to the next type of organization structure, which is functional organization. Now, as said that functional organization, function represents to department, or function represent to specialization, or function represents to heads as such. Now we would have seen this here. It is one specialization which is called as HR head, and the second specialization which is finance head, and the third specialization which is sales head. Now this particular area comes under one unit, this particular area comes under second unit, and this particular area comes under the third unit. So they do one kind of a function, and they do the second kind of a function, and they do the third kind of a function. So according to the functions, when we are splitting it up, then such type of organization is called as functional organization. What is the advantage here? A specialization wise, when you are splitting it up, we would be having a better control over the organization structure. That means when we are having an structure wise this particular area of a specialization, the HR related all the activities are being done by this particular people as such. That is why it is called as a specialization. The whole organization activity with related to the HR, whatever it may be, this particular people will take care of the HR activities as such. That is why it is called as a functional area. It is also called as a departmental, or it is also called as a specialization. So if you see here, it is a complete specialized with related to HR activities. Now similarly, if you see the other area, other function, it is the second function which is called as finance activities. Now under the finance activity, all the areas are connected to only the finance activities, right? So any activity which is related to the finance in the organization will be taken care by the finance head as such, right? Finance head will be responsible for all the discipline of the financial activities. And similarly, we have also the third one which is called as the sales as such. So under the sales is what? We have the sales head who is a separate separate head, and it is a separate function as such. So under the separate function, this particular department or the function is responsible for all the sales activities as such. So in the understanding, this is one function, function number 1, and this is function number 2, and this is function number 3 as such. So what does that mean? There are 3 functions in this particular diagram or a structure. Same number of functions which are specialized in one particular area as such. What will be there in this process? The control with related to one department or one specialization will be very, very, very high. By that, the overall function heads will be reporting to the CEO of that particular process, and ultimately the control will be very, very high. I hope you would have understood the functional organization. Now we'll go to the merits and demerits of functional organization. The merits and demerits of the functional organization, first one, planned specialization. As said, we have seen that specializations are 3. All the 3 are specialized are being well planned. HR is one specialization, finance is one specialization, and sales is the other specialization, which is very much well planned. So without that specialization planning, we would not be able to complete the function as such. Now second merit, it is separates activities related to planning and control. That means HR will have a separate planning and control, finance will have a separate planning and control, and the other specializations will have a separate planning and control. So when you are split according to the specialization, we have a different planning and control as such. Now coming to the next one, large scale production through standardization. This type of specialization will enable us to make a large scale production as such. Why? Because we are specialized according to the requirement and according to the process. That is the reason it enables us to make an high or large production process. Now coming to the next one, the disciplinary controls are well defined. The disciplinary controls are well defined because we have been split the department or the functions of an organization. Based upon that, we would have the control as such. The next, it is appropriate when there is a single product or service. As said, mass production is also possible because we have a large production. If it is a single product, it is very much suitable for the functional organization because we divide the functions and we have a control upon a single product, and based upon that we would be able to work according to the requirement of the organization as such. Now coming to the next merit, it is career path for functional specialists. Why? Because the individual who are working, all the individual are working under the particular specialization. So according to their ability of knowledge in that area only they are working. So they become a specialized employee in those areas where they are working as such. Okay. Now coming to the demerits, it is ineffective control as workers have more than one bosses. Why more than one bosses? You have seen that sometimes the individual will be having more than one bosses because he is supposed to report to the HR as well as he is supposed to report to the financial manager as such. That is why the ineffectiveness is been there as such. And second one, it is very costly. Why it is very costly? We have split the organization as per the specialization. Since the specialization has been split, the employees who are recruited as per the specialization, we will be giving only those tasks to that specification of the functions or departments as such. That is why it is very costly as such comparing to the line and staff organization. Now next demerit is calls for more coordination. Why it calls for a more coordination? Because we have split the organization into different specialization, or we have split the organization into different functions. Now each function are working in the same organization, but all the functions should work towards the goal of the organization. That is why the coordination is required more in case of the functional organization. Though the HR people are working, they are also working for the benefit of the organization only, right? So that is the reason it lags in this case to some extent. So they need to have a more in terms of a coordination aspect. So it is one of the demerit. Next to that, less appropriate when an organization diversifies. As reason is that we have seen here, it is specialized in case of a single product, right? If the company is wanting to expand the product other levels, or if it wants to expand the market or a product, then it becomes a difficulty in the diversification. That is what we have been understood. Now here it has been very much success if it is a single product, but if the company is looking out for one more new product, or if it is looking out for one more new market, in that case it is called as diversifying. Now in case of diversifying, functional organization becomes difficult because all the functions has to match to the new type of a product which is being going to be involved in the organization as such. Okay. And the last demerit, no clear line of authority. No clear line of authority. Why? Because CEO will be controlling mostly on the sales activities or mostly on the production activities, but he doesn't have that level of control, or he would not have willing to control the HR level or other functional areas which may be financial aspect. Why? Because the revenue generating is which one? The production and the sales one. Those are the revenue generating functions. Now the revenue generating functions as identified, the concentration of the topmost officials also will be on the revenue generating functions only, whereas the other function which is financial functional and HR function, the CEO would not be concentrating on those functions to that extent comparable to the marketing or the sales or the production functions as such. That is why the clarity of line of authority is comparatively less as such. Okay. Now these are the merits and demerits of the functional organization. Now coming to the next type of organization, that is matrix organization. We have the understanding of matrix organization. As I previously said, the absence of the more authority or more control on the work, right? Lags in case of line, lags in case of line and authority, line and staff, also lags in case of functional organization. In case of this matrix organization, the task is been assigned to the project managers, and the project managers are the sole responsible for the work to get done. Now this people will have the different levels of the people whom these are the disciplines. This is manufacturing discipline or function, sales discipline or function, finance discipline or a function, and human resource discipline or a function. Now this people will be reporting to manufacturing manager as well as the project A manager as such. Similarly, he will have a control or the reporting level or authority on this people, and this people also have the authority on this people as such. So what is that ultimately happening? All the people are working as per project A, this people are working as per project B, and this people are working as per project C. But this people are working as per the discipline of manufacturing, this people are working as per the discipline of sales, this people are working as per the discipline of finance, and this people are working as per the discipline of human resource manager. So to a diagrammatic representation, you would understand now this is a discipline, right? These are the discipline, that is functional organization, where we have seen functions, right? This is 4 types of a function. Now the other process is the manager. This is, right, we have the projects as such. So there are 3 projects. All these 3 projects will have a reporting levels at 4 levels, and similarly this people will have a reporting level as 3. Now this combination is what is called as matrix organization. Now this matrix organization finally will have the project manager responsibility of completing the project A, project B manager responsible of completing the project B, project C manager completing the task of the project C as such. Now this is more suitable in most of the service oriented organization, where there are more project based projects working in the organization as such, right? Now we will see the merits and demerits of the matrix organization. Now under the merits and demerits of the organization, the first merit of the organization, it offers operational freedom and flexibility. It offers operational freedom and flexibility, meaning it gives a more flexibility in terms of the control over the subordinate and the superior assets. Second, it seeks to optimize the utilization of resources. The resources in all the discipline are being used to the highest level of controllable, because each and every employee is been assigned to some project as such, right? Now coming to the third one, it focuses on end results. The focuses of the end result is that the task is been given to project A, project B and project C. So based upon the project A, project B and project C, the task would get done as such. So individual manager are responsible to the project, and the project managers will be able to complete the task as such. Now coming to the fourth point, it maintains professional identifying, right? Identity, meaning what does the professional identification refers to, that the individual, if he is able to complete the project A, then the individual manager would be able to get a reputation in the organization, by which he may be given more higher level of a task as such. And the few people will be working under the respective discipline and the respective project manager. More, if you are able to contribute the work towards that particular discipline in the particular project, the individuals are also being identified and being reputed as such. Now it holds an employee responsible for management of resources. It holds an employee responsible for management of resources, meaning it gives a control on the individual, and every individual is being made directly responsible as such. Now coming to the demerits, it calls for the greater degree of coordination, right? Now mostly why it calls for the more degree of coordination is because the individual is been reporting to two bosses, so the coordination is required is more higher level. Now second one, it violates unity of command. The unity of command main understanding is and subordinate with only one boss, but here under the matrix organization individual has more than one boss. That is why it is deviating of unity of command. Now it may be difficult to define authority and responsibility precisely. The reason behind that is the authority and the responsibility is actually being deviated from the control because there are two levels of the bosses or more than one level of the bosses as such. And the last one, it is employees, and employees may find it frustrating to work with two bosses. The employees may find it difficult to work under two bosses is because the matrix organization basic principle is the individual would be reporting more than one boss, and when individual is working with more than one boss, definitely there is very much possible of arising of a conflict between the two bosses as such. Okay, under this process we have a kind of a difficulty as such of maintaining the matrix organization. So we are done with the matrix organization. We are coming to the last type of organization, which is called as committee organization. So the formation of committee organization is done normally when there is an emergency of requirement to make or try to identify a solution with related to a problem. In committee organization, the formation of committee is been done with the experts, and those experts will give an pure inputs with related to the organization, right? And in connected to the main core objective, that is the corporate goals. So the example of such type of committee, that is finance committee, purchase committee, executive committee, promotion committee. Now these committees are specifically only for that purpose they are framed, and they give the suggestions, and these suggestions are being very much implementable or very much implementable. Why? Because those are the people who are the experts in those particular organization as such. So I said that the different formation of committee is being made or appointed based upon the need or the necessity from the organization to fulfill that. Okay, so we'll go to the merits and demerits of the committee organization. So under the merits and demerits of the committee organization, the first one, it pools up the organization resources. How? It try to, since we are making the expert to sit in this, right? The committee has been framed based upon the experts only. And this committee, since it is been framed based upon the experts will be able to give the or try to utilize the resources wherever they are been having the information, because the experts have the complete knowledge of their discipline, and all the experts sitting in that particular resource committee committee will able to bring out the most effective utilization of the resources. That is why the first foremost point it is, it pulls out the organization resources as such. Now second one, it represents all interest group and facilities group decision. It identifies the interest of the individual group, that is the discipline group, and also the all disciplines as such. That is the reason the committee is being framed with a number of experts, and all the experts are of different discipline, and all the different discipline experts will be able to think from their perspective or their department or function as such. That is why it facilitates group decision and also the individual interest or the department interest as such. Now coming to the third one, it yields good results. It yields good result because the committee has been made from the experts, and the expert decisions is very good in taking into the consideration of implementation of the solution. Now coming to the fourth one, it minimizes the fear of too much authority. Why? Because the authority, when they are made a formation of a committee, suppose if it is not a committee, then only the discipline would have been taken a decision. When the committee would have been framed from 3 to 4 department process, then they would be able to have an indication of decision without any fear as such, and they would bring out more inputs from their the respective disciplines as such. Now coming to the last one in the merit, it motivates all the concerned effect of the groups as such, because all the experts from the respective departments or disciplines sit together and they try to come out with a new emphasized decision which has been suitable to majority of the disciplines as such. Now those are the merits and demerits. The first demerit is responsibility for decisions cannot be fixed to a particular person. Why? Because in the committee though it is been framed, actually the committee will be having one of the head, right? They would have nominated one of the head. If the decision has gone wrong in the committee, then definitely majority of the people, they make a comment that the decision taken is by the committee head. Now which is one of the demerit in the committee organization. And next one, demerit, it calls for high degree of coordination. Reason for the call for high degree of coordination is because it is involved with n number of disciplines, and n number of disciplines heads are been involved in formation of the decision as such. So the committee whichever is been framed, the decision which has been given, the find out or to get that particular decision, we need to have a better coordination from all the departments, the committee who have been appointed, so that the decision which is been framed is very, very big decision and good decision as such. And coming to the third demerit, it involves with high cost in terms of time and money. The committee members appointed are very, very experts in those respective committee disciplines as such. They need to be provided with the time duration, and that time which has been framed in the form of a committee is been lost in the form of an organization as such. So that is the reason why the cost is being incurred at a high level in terms of the organization, and the money is also been involved, and the experts utility of the time is been lost in case of the committee organization. If the decision has been a viable decision and been implemented effectively, then losing of a cost of money is not a problem in the organization. Whereas every time the decision taken by the committee cannot be a viable decision. That is the reason the money and the time which is also lost in the formation of a committee organization is very much